getting back to the current practice, the A/B tests really pushed all the review process towards extreme situations. So now the reviews are all going towards this really extreme situation. So all the reviewers have some extreme setup, and by doing the A/Bs, they try to push the extremes. Can I hear even more top end, even more dynamics, more of this, more, you know, kind of like a drug addict or a drunk in the bar, like I want more. But there are lots of things with this review process that are highly questionable, and sometimes when you see a good reviewer, they elaborate a lot on it, but if not, then all of this is not mentioned. For example, one critical aspect is room. What is the size of the room? How is the placement of your speakers in the room? And what are the room treatments that the reviewer uses to get that effect? Because if you place the exact same setup in your own house, then it will work very different compared to what the reviewer experiences. And if you do not know that, you do not control for that, you do not have the education to grasp it and utilize it, then reviews mean I would say they are not too useful or not too helpful to guide you to where you want to go. A very critical part of the reviews is that correct amplifier and speaker matching. This is sometimes some reviewers do a little effort on it and try to get some more compatible issues, and with solid state gear it happens pretty well, but when I see tube reviews, it's just a complete facepalm, especially when you see like flip power or low power tube amplifiers and they throw like unsensitive speakers at them. It's just like face palming, like come on. It's like giving a dancer lead boots and okay, let's see you run. And often if you add the wrong type of cable to a system, like for example if you have a refined tube system and then you add MIT cables to it, to a single-ended tube amp, it will pretty much create a very artificial sound. It will be probably reviewed very well because you will have really high resolution, high definition, but it will really make something bad to the tonal balance. And we also need to count for the reviewer's bias. What are his favorite cable brands, amplifiers, what is the music he listens to, what are the labels. So all of these really skew the reviews. So we would need something a little bit more when we hear about an amplifier or speaker or something, to tell more about it, what it does, what it will be, where will it take me. And what Peter from AudioNote, what his solution to this was, that instead of review with a reference, is compare it by contrast. So it's instead of looking what it can do with a specific recording, where did I put it? Like here. This has been my reference for 20 years. This is a Mercury Living Presence recording, and Byron Janis is playing pictures at an exhibition. And also it has at the second part Dorati conducting the orchestral version, which Ravel orchestrated from Mussorgsky Pictures at an exhibition. So you can listen to both of them, and both of them are with an excellent interpretation, and you have basically two excellent review tools here in one place. And one of them is the piano, which I really highly recommend to use as a reference tool for you, for your ears, and to tell what a system does, because a piano, as you go through the octaves, it has the widest frequency range of all instruments, and when they play the lowest keys and the highest keys, then it should sound like it's the same piano playing. If when the pianist is playing and the upper registers sound completely different than the lower register, and it's like sometimes this can fall apart to such a degree that it's as if there's like 7 different pianos playing. So each octave is played on a different piano. Like the lowest octaves are played on a Bosendorfer, and then a Steinway, and then a Yamaha, and then an electric keyboard, and then a Yamaha again. By the way, this is like Wilson audio sound. Then you know that there's something fundamentally wrong with the tonality of that system. And for most people that doesn't mean anything, because particularly if you listen to jazz, then for jazz there are no instruments which tonality reaches multiple octaves. Yes, sometimes there's a piano, but it's just a bar piano, and it's not there for its harmonic qualities, it's for its hammering qualities. So like the jazz pianists like to just really whack those keys, and it's really as the tempo is what matters, and it you really don't need to hear the tonality. But when you have a concert piano, tone is everything with a concert piano. And when I mean this comparison by contrast, is that or what Peter means by it is that if you take like 5 different recordings, that piece of audio equipment is better, that can make the biggest difference between those 5 recordings. Because if your equipment, let's say you take 5 recordings and all of them sound the same, then that equipment is coloring the sound, it's distorting, it's doing something so that it transforms everything to the same mode. So if you have an amp that sounds powerful with every recording, then we have a problem, because it means that it does something to the music. Because there are some recordings which sound really powerful, and then there are others which are really puny and weak. And if you get a system that transforms everything to powerful sound, that will get the best 5-star rating from the current review process. But Peter warns us that that product is the one that probably colors the sound the most. So the sound you are getting might be pleasing, and you can find a product like that is to your current tastes, but it's not an honest product. It's not the peak of high-end audio, because it's fooling you. It's lying to you. So what else did I read up here? So my idea on this is to take this notion a notch further, and it's not just so today what is happening is that because the review process processes are focusing on presenting certain recordings in a certain light, that drove the entire audio industry to do these kinds of transformations to the sound that make it more pleasing for the reviewers. And when you talk to engineers and builders, they will tell you, and they can describe you exactly what they are doing to make the sound more pleasing for the reviewers. One easy thing is flip the mid-range out of phase, because that will pop out the high end, pop out the low end, and it will sound more impressive. Reviewer will be 50% more likely to give it a thumbs up. And that's why today's audio manufacturing companies, most of them, they have transformed into this direction to appease the reviewers. And what this resulted in is that we ended up dialing up the contrast. So that it's like a visual way of saying it, is that the contrast that the audio creates, it's not this contrast that Peter talks about, like the difference, the dynamic contrast between two equipment, but it's like dialing up the brightness. I said, let's not use the word contrast here, let's use brightness. So all the high-end products have the brightness dialed up to 100, so that everything sounds like really showy, really impressive. And the problem with that is that we are now so addicted to this high contrast situation that we think that that's the normal. For example, when we listen to a guitar recording, it sounds as if it doesn't sound at all like a guitar playing in real life. It sounds as if you are standing right up at the guitar, like 2-3 inches from your ear, and then someone is playing the guitar right there, and then you put your ears there. So that's the tuned up brightness. But it's not something honest, not something natural, something very interesting, which adds extra. Yes, it does, because you can hear more details, but it also takes away. And it takes away a lot from the emotionality, it takes away the wholeness of the presentation. So this leads us to a dilemma, because when you hear about the today's official reviews or YouTube, whatever product being showcased, then everyone, I think every audiophile, me included, experience that what sounds best in the showroom or is named number one in the review is often disappointing at home. And I tell you an awesome story about that happened to my audio buddy Taltos. Is that when he was in Toronto, he went into the audio store and he looked for a new pair of speakers, and he found a pair of PSBs, and he was absolutely blown away by them, because he said that, I compared it to all the other speakers in the store, and those blew away everything. They were fantastic. And then he said, there's more to the story. That I noticed at the time that they used the tube amplifier to demo the speakers, and I was really curious, but because he was a solid state guy, like a really digital guy, and he asked, like, okay, so what is the power output of that amplifier? And I said about 20 watts per channel. And it's a Japanese amplifier. And then he was thinking, okay, I have a 50 watt per channel, also Japanese amplifier. He had a Sony receiver, so that's perfect. So he then had an idea that if a 20 watt per channel Japanese amp can drive his speakers, then a 50 watt per channel Japanese amplifier will do twice as good a job. So he bought the speakers, he was super happy, hooked it up at home, and then like the bass disappeared, dynamics disappeared, life disappeared. It still sounded much better than his own speakers, but it sounded like a good mid-fi product versus the best sound he ever heard in his life. And then he looked into that weird amplifier, and he kind of figured it out that that's not a pedestrian amplifier, and the person who demoed his PSB speakers used an ongaku to demo those speakers. And so that's part of the reason why often we have disappointments, because if the store owner is not honest, then he will use his most expensive system to demo a bottom line product for you, and you will think that it's the speakers that sound that good. And he's halfway right, because the speaker can sound that good, but then you need like a $20,000 to $100,000 amplifier to make it sound that good. you hook it up to your $300 receiver, it will not sound like that. So so that's one thing, one aspect. And the other aspect, even if at the store they use a comparable system that you have at home, maybe just like a $500 per component system, it will still sound probably 10 times better in the store, because he has room treatments in the showroom and a lot of power treatments. So the probably dedicated power lines, dedicated fuse box, whatnot. Probably all those treatments cost like 10 to 20 times more than the entire system that you are thinking of purchasing. And that's why it sounds so good, because the racetrack is perfect for that scenario. And when you take it home, and then instead of a racetrack you have I don't know, maybe a marshland or a swimming pool, of course it will not swim that fast there. And also the third reason is at the showroom they use 5 or 6 reference recordings usually that sound the best with that system. And when you go home and you think that your favorite recordings will sound that way, probably that's not the case. So reference records versus your collection. So if you are on a road that you are gauging everything by a few reference recordings, then you are probably squeezing down your selection and denying yourself the pleasure to hear all your collection, because your path is getting narrower and narrower. So my solution, because Peter's solution was just listen to contrasts, but if you do not have experience with that, it's something really hard to grasp. And it's also really hard to grasp if it's not a really top-end system. It will not give you pretty contrasts. You will not understand it. It will just, whatever. I play the junk recordings and it sounds like junk. You will have that kind of feeling about it. But what Peter is referring to is if you have a really good system and you put on a junk recording, it will still sound 10 times better than you ever heard it in your life. It will not sound nearly as good as a properly recorded recording, but it will be still something that's really pleasurable. Like you have some music that you heard as a kid and had a big effect on you, and you want to live that effect again, go back to that moment. If you put it on a system that you buy for $1 million, like Magico speakers or whatnot, it will sound pretty bad, and you will not go back to that magical moment in your childhood. Maybe if you are lucky, maybe if you luck out, but that's usually not the case, because the systems are too specialized for resolution and detail, and that doesn't allow for a wide range of source. So my method is I recommend the Marie Kondo or the Van Damme method. So maybe some of you are already familiar with the Marie Kondo method. She's a Japanese lady who invented tidying up. So her method is designed for your house and your living situation. So how to get rid of clutter in your life, and how to make your home and your living environment and translate it from a dump or a hoarder's situation, even if like that's like an extreme case, or maybe just something that you don't like, and turn it into something which brings you joy every day. Even if your situation is not like a dump, I hope it's not. Even if you think that your place is pretty nice, if you check out Marie Kondo, she will give you advice how to take it to the next level. And it really works. I tried it out. Nelly has started doing it, and then she got me into it. It was fantastic. It worked. And for those of you who don't want to get in touch with your feminine side, I recommend the Van Damme method. So they are the two sides of the same coin, and there's a video. I will put it up as a reference to that video that you can watch on YouTube on the Damme method. It's really good to watch. So basically, how these methods work, if it doesn't spark joy in your life, it goes out the door or the window. So the Marie Kondo method is hugging it lovingly, putting it in a bag, and take it out the window and donate it or trash it, whatever. Damme method, chuck it out the window. Use your karate punches or kickbox kicks on it, and just make your life more brighter and more active by that. And but how can you tell, does it spark joy or not? It's really true. You have to ask this question: does it bring happiness to my life? Does it bring joy to my life? And you think that, well, it's really high resolution and this or that sounds really good in it, but I don't know. When I listen to it, all I can think about is that I need to upgrade this or upgrade that, and maybe then something. If that's the case, then probably it's not sparking much joy in your life. And then just make the call and change it. Get a different equipment to replace it. That sparks you more joy. Or if you think that you already went through a dozen different gear, all of them were terrible and this is the best, but it still doesn't spark you joy, then look into it, like how can you change that? If you are going to change it again to a 13th different piece, there's a good chance it will not work either. So that's a wake-up sign that you will need to change your approach and do something different than before. And one question is, like, go into it, ask yourself the question, does it work on the long run? So think about what were the equipment, what were the gear that worked for you for the longest time. Not the one that you hear it, wow, this is great, and then a week later you're, there's something wrong with it. It sounded really dynamic at first, but then I noticed after 2 days that the highs are too harsh, it's burning my ears. So if that's the situation, that thing, just let it go. Does it make music more accessible? This is a huge key component of whether it sparks joy or not. If it doesn't make music accessible, it makes your record collection shrink, then it's not a good choice. You will not be happy with it on the long run. Do you get a deeper connection to deep music? Yes, that's good. That's the point of listening to music, that you get more connected to music. Or does it present an addiction to shallow music? So when you just go for something superficial, all the synths they just sound divine, and you learn nothing about the music itself, what is being played. You just want to hear something, a certain instrument. If that's the case, get that instrument for yourself and learn to play something on it. You will be much more happier. Does it add something to your life? Since you have your stereo, do you feel better? Do you feel happier? Does it improve other aspects of your life? Are you more balanced? Are you more creative? Can you perform better at your work? Or does it take away your attention and you are failing at your job because all you can think about is stereo reviews? So my advice is that do this process of tidying up, of cleaning up things, both with your music material and your stereo gear. And for music material, is go through them. Do I really like this music? Do I want to hear this music? Or do I just have it because someone said that this is a really high quality recording? And indeed, when I listen to it, it has like maybe tremendous soundstage, really fantastic vocals, but it's a torture to listen to it. And next day I feel really bad because it just drains me whenever I listen to it. If you have music like that, I'm at the point that I have tons of music, and I have music that was recorded in high quality, in has great performances. So now I'm at the point that, okay, I'm chucking out of my life all of those recordings which have horrible music in it. I don't care if anyone said that that's one of the best recordings ever made. It doesn't spring joy. It goes out. Damme method. So here, this is the one that I did recently, use the Damme method. Is this Deutsche Grammophon recording. That's the catalog number, and the composer was Hans Werner Henze, and Elegie für junge Liebende. It's like litanies for young lovers, or lamentations of young lovers. It's a torture. It's recorded fabulously. It has an amazing soundstage. The vocals, she's fantastic. She is a fantastic singer who is singing in it, tremendously talented. But the singing is torture. She's murdering her vocals. Her vocal cords are probably bust after that. If she has to sing it in an opera, on a performance, maybe like twice a week in a season for 4 or 5 weeks on, after that probably she can say goodbye to her vocal cords. That maybe that's her career in, because it demands such extremes from the singer. But it was torture, and after like 20 minutes, and then it was like the emotionality that came through it was so heart-wrenching and mind-twisting. I couldn't listen to it. I had to go upstairs, so I'm further away from it. It's like when there's like someone who had like gone through a terrible shock and stress, and is like screaming and crying and totally out of control. It's after a while it's too much, and you want to stay away from that person. The stereo had the same effect with that recording, so I went upstairs, but after 10 more minutes it was just too much. I had to take off that record, put it back in the cover, and Damme method. So another part is that which this cataclysmic recording prompted me to include in my daily practice is, does it bring pain into your life? And when you have an excellent audio system, then it will show you a lot of recordings that bring tremendous pain, anxiety, and instability. A lot of modern composers wrote works which really came from like a really problematic mind, or they depicted suffering and war or death on a mass scale. And if you are listening to works like that, it will affect you really, really negatively. If you just listen to it on a low resolution system, then it's just noise in the background. But when you can have access to the emotionality behind it, it can ruin you on the long term. Don't do that. I had a friend here, Dave, and he had a system that could portray emotions really strongly, and he always listened to depressive music, like really badly, and he was a nervous wreck. So be careful. If you have a system that has that kind of power, then use the Damme method and do yourself a service, and don't play music that brings you down. Play music that helps you going up on your journey, so that you do not feel like an addiction victim. And if you do, change your approach to music and stereo. That's, if you don't want to, fine, but I warmly recommend to do if you want to have improvements in your life as well. So maybe I'm running really long here, but just another comparison between what we get in the mainstream and what I'm guiding you towards, what my method is. So the mainstream is all about details. How can we get more detail from a recording? How can we get excessive excesses, like more dynamics, more bass, more everything? It has to be outrageous. If it's balanced, it doesn't cut it anymore. It has to be something, and there's a price to pay for that they are not talking about, because when someone is an addict to something, he just wants more. He doesn't care about the cost, and the cost of these excessive excesses is tonality and substance. It goes out the window. And what you have is that you have a magnified picture. So when you listen to a violin sonata, all you hear is the strings of the violin just sawing off your ear. It's super high definition, super high resolution. It's stunning because you never heard anything like that in your life. But it's not how a violin sounds. And this type of presentation engages your mind alone. So it is just for your head. Only details, nothing else. So what I found is much more rewarding is if the music engages not just your mind, but heart and soul, everything. And it's not about over-analyzing, overemphasizing a certain aspect of music, but presenting the whole to you, so you can enjoy a performance, and you do not get lost in a certain detail, and you get connected to the music. And that way you can really absorb that material that the musicians wanted to transmit to you. Because when the musicians play, they form sound. That's how you get it in your body. But the sound carries a message. And my way, what I'm trying to teach, is how you can get the message. What the mainstream dream is about is how you can get the sound itself, not the message. Just being absorbed with the message. It's like when you get a gift. The mainstream is all about the wrapping paper. Which gift has the flashiest wrapping paper? And they are all about wrapping paper, and they don't even want to know what's inside the box. For me, everything is about what's inside the box. And the wrapping paper is it fine? It's fine. But I don't go to town to get the nicest wrapping paper if the content itself ain't worth a thing, right? So I hope it gave a little food for thought for everyone, and just do a quick reflection. Do you really need a Damme method for you, or Marie Kondo method, or are you happy with your stereo as you are? If you are happy, don't change a thing. If you are not happy, then I hope I could help. Thank you. Bye bye.